Hey guys, it's Craig from Wattle Accountants. Today's video is about Xero versus QuickBooks, which is easier. So we got this idea from a comment in one of our other videos, so thanks for the comment, it's a great idea. So firstly, if you've ever used Xero QuickBooks before, we always recommend to continue using it. It's just going to be easier. But if you're starting a business or you don't have an accounting system yet, this video is going to be helpful. So it's going to have a lot of introductory, step-by-step how you use it, and also the differences between the two, and obviously which is easier. That's what the video is about. So let's get started. The first thing we want to talk about today is the bank reconciliation. So in simple terms, we have our transactions on our bank statement. We want to put that into our accounting system. Then the accounting system will be able to tell us how much income we've made, expenses, how much GST we owe. So it's very important, and it's a very time-consuming task. So it's important to choose the one that is the easiest, because you're going to spend a lot of time doing it. So with QuickBooks, if we go to the bookkeeping, so in this example we've got two bank accounts here. You can see bank account and bank account number 2. In this little screen up here, you've got the blue section is the actual balance on the bank statement, and then the white section tells us what the balance is in QuickBooks. So in a perfect world, we want them to match, because that means all of our transactions in the bank statement are in our accounting system, which means the accounting information is going to be accurate. Okay, so if you scroll down, we've got 3 tabs here. So we've got excluded, which usually if there's an error with a bank feed, we usually put that in there. The bank feed is just simply the transactions on your bank statement automatically added to the file. So you can see we've got quite a few transactions on our bank statement that have come through. So once you get that connected with the bank feed, so you just sort of, you can set it up in here. But basically, once it's connected, every day you'll have new transactions added into here. So for review, these are the ones that just are not in the QuickBooks file yet. And the categorized, so once we do enter them in the file, they will be here. So this is how you undo a transaction. If you're like, oh, I accidentally put it into bank fees when it's an accounting fee. So you can just go in and undo that, and then it'll be back on the for review tab. So pretty straightforward. We'll do the first one. So it's the bank transaction says Wattle Accountants, so that's us. This column here, it suggests what it may be. So meals and entertainment, it's obviously wrong. But down here we've got our Stripe payment, money received, so that's a sale, and it is right. So so you just be mindful that that's not what it is. It's just a suggestion. Okay, so to enter in the file, you got a couple of different ways of entering it in the file. You got recorders, credit card payment, that rarely gets used. Recorders transfer, so basically if this transaction is a transfer between another account up here, you record it as transfer, and then you select the account number. So once you add it here, you go over to the other side, you find the same transaction, because when you transfer money from one side to the other, it's going to be on both statements. And rather recording as a transfer back, you do find and match. What that does is it prevents it being entered twice. Really important. This is one of the most common errors we see in bank reconciliation issues. You've got transfers going both ways, even though it's the same transfer. Okay, so let's go back. Whoops. So we go find match. So this one here. So if you invoice through, it's most commonly used when you invoice through QuickBooks. So if you go in here, send an invoice to your customer, they pay you, and the money comes through. Let's say, for example, this this payment here, the $1,200 there. If we go, we don't just categorize that with this first option into sales. Even though it is a sale, if we've entered it as an invoice, it's already in the sales bucket, so you can't put it in there twice, otherwise it's going to be doubled up. Once again, this happens very often. So don't feel bad if you make the mistake, but you just go click find match. You'll see you should be able to find the invoice. Maybe just check the date range if it doesn't come up, and then you just apply the payment to there. This is handy as well as if you've got one payment for like 5 invoices or something like that. You can cross them off. So yeah, and the last one, which is the categorize, which is the most common one you use, where you just this one is accounting fee. So you go click down here, what categories. So we'll just go, accounting fee. When it says GST, so what you got to do here is just make sure you check the invoice. Does it say GST on it? Yes. So you go claim GST. Some other stuff here, but it's up to you. It's not mandatory. Like you can put name and just makes it easy to track. Some tags, but once again, not necessary. Okay, so overall, pretty straightforward. The last thing I want to talk about is the bank feed. The bank rule. Very, very important to make things a lot easier, so you can actually just access it from in here. So let's say, for example, you're making a monthly payment to Wattle Accountants for your accounting fees. So rather than every time it comes into your for review tab, you can just make a bank rule based on the narration, because it's always going to be the same. So it basically saves your settings, and this is really important. Xero doesn't have this with their bank rule, but basically it gives you the option to auto add. So every time this transaction comes in, it automatically gets put into categorize. You don't even have to think about it. So really handy feature there. So yeah, overall I think QuickBooks is quite good in this process. So now we're going to go over to Xero, have a look what they're doing. So go to accounting, bank accounts. So we got so this demo file, it's got 2 bank accounts. So we'll just click on this first one. So if we wanted to sort of compare it to the other bank account, so you'd have to do this drop down and select the account, which is kind of like how I can just click between the 2 bank accounts and you've got the different transactions. So it's similar in a way, but a little bit different. You've also got the current bank balance and then the current balance in QuickBooks. So Xero has that here, so you can see on this side you've got the statement balance there and what it is in Xero, so it's different. I think if we go into the savings account, yeah. So once it does match, it doesn't show the amount. It just says reconcile, which is really nice to see. So once again, it has the same features there. What we're going to do now is actually look at allocating the transactions like what we did. So going through these transactions, but we do it in Xero. So there's actually two ways to do that. So you've got this cash coding screen. So this is really handy if you've got like a lot of transactions. So let's say, for example, the Central City parking. So we tick them all and then we just say they're travel expenses or something. So you do that and you can see how it's sort of put it on all of them. And then you go save and reconcile and then they're all in the file. So pretty straightforward. The one thing I would mention is that I don't know why it's split, but basically you'll see that things that can be matched to like invoices just don't appear here. So if you go to reconcile, I'll show you what I mean. So like on the 13th, this transaction line is a payment of $6,000 on the 13th. It's just suggesting it as a match, which we'll go over in a second. But if you go over and try and find that transaction in the cash coding trend, there's nothing, there's nothing there for that date. So can be quite confusing, to be honest. But yeah, unlike QuickBooks, which literally it's all in the one screen, makes it real easy. So let's say we've entered all the cash coding transactions, and now we're going through what's left. So you do have a lot of options that are very similar to QuickBooks and actually works exactly the same. So let's say, for example, this money received is $100. You can go match and then find the invoice so it doesn't duplicate it. Pretty straightforward. You also have create, which is the same as the categorize. So you're just literally putting it into whatever account it may be. So you just be like meals or something. Maybe like, if we just say bank fees. Like it's not bank fees, but we'll just put that just so we can get it to. So see if it says okay. You click that, make sure the GST is right as well, just like you did in QuickBooks. Click OK. It's now in the file, and when you run reports, etc., Xero will be accurate. You've also got transfer. Once again, it's this exact same as the recorder's transfer. Xero actually has this other option with the discuss, where if you're working on the file and your bookkeeper accountant wants to, or you don't know what it is and you want your bookkeeper accountant to help you out with that, you say, don't know what it is. I think this demo actually had an example somewhere. Maybe not. So you can just write it in there. So not sure what this is. So you can just save it. So it's not okay, so it doesn't go in the file. So you just go save. Personally, I don't think this is actually in reality that great of a function, because as an accountant, usually I'll look at this transaction to know what it is, or check the existing data, see if there's an existing transaction. Usually a discussion comment is not really going to help me too much. Usually I would say I need a copy of the invoice or some sort of documentation if the bank narration is not good enough. So I feel this is a little redundant, to be honest, but I think for some arrangements it can be handy, you know what I mean? So you can just leave your comments there and then come back to them later, or even for yourself, I'll do this later or something like that. Okay, so that's pretty much for Xero. What's the verdict? Well, personally, yeah, definitely QuickBooks. you got one screen, everything's there. It's very easy to navigate. I think this categorizer makes it easier. If you make a mistake with one of the transactions, you got to go into this third tab, find it, and then, so like say for example, this one, you go remove and redo, and it's back whichever tab it's in. So once again, 3 tabs when QuickBooks only has 1, or 2 if you're, depending on the way you're looking at it. Okay, so now we're going to look at the invoicing. So if we go over to get paid in QuickBooks, so QuickBooks has this sort of summary at the top here, and then you have a list of all the invoices. It actually works as a filter. It's very visually appealing, helpful in that, how much has been paid, how much is outstanding. So you can actually click this, and it works as a filter. So you can go, okay, how many are outstanding over the 30 days, and it will show you the list. Quite handy. Over in Xero, we'll have a look at that one now. So once again, very different. They've just got this sort of table. So if you're not sure who owes you money, you just go into await payment, and then you can sort of just check the list there. They do have a separate sales overview, which I think is maybe a bit more similar to what we've got here. But once again, you've got to go into a separate tab to sort of see that. It'd be nice, I guess, to put that in the top of the invoices, like how QuickBooks has got it. But otherwise, relatively the same. Now we'll look at the invoice now. I'm not going to worry about the personalization because all I care about as an accountant is it's got all the key things you need for an invoice. Visually, there's a lot of customizability in both of them, so you can make it really look whatever way you want. So I'm not going to really cover that, just sort of the key things that are different. So as an invoice, you got all the key stuff, name, email, what it is, stuff like that. When you go to collect payment, QuickBooks, you can connect with PayPal to get the credit card payments, or you can just put your bank details there and they'll pay you that way. If we go over to Xero, so open an invoice. Trying to show you the difference here as well. So you can see it's kind of like the basic stuff, you know what I mean? It's got everything you need. I wouldn't be worried too much. It's also got the same thing. You can connect PayPal to take the credit card payments. You can even put your bank details on there if you haven't set that up. But once again, from an invoicing point of view, I think they're honestly the exact same. Maybe if you had a preference for sort of this layout at the top, but otherwise some people might prefer the table, this table here they might prefer this as a way of sort of looking at their invoices. So it's, I guess, a personal preference. Okay, now we're going to talk about the GST. Okay, so we'll start with Xero. So if you are registered for GST and you have to lodge that with ATO, the accounting system actually pull those figures and report that. So we'll go into, activity statements. So you can see up here that it's not connected just because it's demo file, but basically you just select, say, the BAS that you're doing. Let's go December 19. There's no data just because it's a demo file, but it'll pull all the figures across for you. It's really nice in that it has these tabs here that sort of drop down the breakdown. Very easy to sort of check, what did I claim on my purchases, stuff like that. Was that included? You can also export it. I think it's really handy. So Xero's been the market leader with this for a long time, and they're in fact the only one that had this option. But recently, QuickBooks has implemented that themselves. So they had a similar layout, except that you weren't able to lodge it with the ATO, but you can now. Because I'm logged in as an account, I can't see the register, but it'll be in this sort of top right hand corner. But very similar. You go prepare, you select the quarter, stuff like that. So similar to the Xero. And if you want the breakdown, you've got to sort of run the reports up here. So I guess what is my verdict for a GST point of view? I actually think Xero is still better because it's got this nice layout. I think at some point QuickBooks will probably move this data out as well. Maybe like add tabs here, like you've got history and stuff. So I imagine they will eventually move that down here. So yeah, for now, both of them can do the job, but I think I'd prefer Xero. Okay, last one we want to talk about is the payroll. So if you employ someone or hoping to employ someone, this is going to be very helpful. So we'll start with we'll start with QuickBooks. So we'll just go to Payroll. So the first sort of step with Payroll is setting up your employees, which we'll do now. Might as well just get that open as well. Okay, so QuickBooks has a self-employed self-start. So you just put in their details, it sends an email, and then they just put all their tax information in there. And then you obviously just check it, prove it, make sure everything looks reasonable. Then you can go straight into doing the pay runs. So with Xero, Xero is the same thing. They have a self-service as well, but they decided to brand their Xero Me for some reason. But that's, yeah, works exactly the same way, self-service, which is great. Saves you a lot of time. Okay, so the pay run will, sorry, just clicked into that too quickly. So I've set up, you might decide weekly, fortnightly, monthly, whatever you may decide. I've just made up a weekly pay run here. So that's the week decided and when the payment is. So you just go new pay run, it's very straightforward. So we're going to go into the pay run and have a look what the differences are there. So we've got like a drop down for each employee. So if you have 10, you'll have like 10 of these drop down, and you can open them all up at the same time, which I think is really great. You've got, you know, your hours, what your gross, the hourly rate that you're going to pay them. So pretty straightforward. Let's go over to Xero and have a look. Sorry, to get into the pay runs, you just go pay employees. So we've got a fortnightly pay run here. So they've got 3 employees. So you notice the difference already that in the pay run, like I can have, you know, if you're comparing, you know, between 2 employees, you know, oh, what do I do there? You can open them and save them, like work on it all together. Xero, unfortunately, just gives you that top level, but you got to click into it. And then just like the bank account, you got to sort of click here to be like, oh, you know, what did Sally have? We'll have to click into there and then, you know, save and then go back. Whereas like you literally can work on it all at the same time and then save, you know what I mean? I think that's actually a really great feature. But other than that, like it's relatively straightforward. Everything's sort of the same in that, you know, how you set it up, the hourly rates and stuff like that. So I'm not going to go into that. The last thing I want to talk about with the pay runs is it's a common issue that comes up with small business. They would usually negotiate their hourly rate with their employee. They might say, for example, I'll pay you $30 an hour. You'll do like 10 hours a week. So in that situation, both yourself and the employer are under the understanding that I'm going to get $300 a week. So that's actually not the reality, because you have to withhold tax, and how much to withhold is dependent on their tax file number declaration. So you won't know what the withholding is until you get that form. So that's why you should always, when you negotiate wages, is quote on a gross wages. So you go, oh, it'll be total of $30. You know, obviously we have to take some tax out. You know, you want to keep it really generic because you don't know what the withholding will be. However, if you're in that situation where that's just the way you do business, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a little tricky for payroll because you've got to work back from the net pay to get the pay slip to line up. QuickBooks, believe it or not, has a really great feature for this. So you go, sorry, I went too quickly, actions, and then calculate gross payment from net. So let's say for an example, 10 hours, $30 an hour, so $300. And then we go categories, just like ordinary earnings, pretty straightforward. So the gross wage is actually $566. What does that mean? So basically for demo employee that I set up, I put in certain tax file number declaration information, which meant that there's withholding of $266. So you're going to pay him $300 this week, but then when you lodge the quarterly BAS, there's $266 of withholding tax that you have to pay on his behalf. So how much is he actually getting paid? Like he's getting $300 now, but he's actually getting $566 because the $266 is then paid to the ATO on his behalf. So yeah, really great feature. Xero doesn't have it, but like you can, there's a couple ways, you know, whether you keep tweaking the rate to get it to match or the hours or whatever you may do. You just keep tweaking until you get the net pay to match. There are calculators online I'm not going to go into, but yeah, really great feature if that's, you know, you run into the situation often. Okay, last thing I want to talk about is the superannuation. So every quarter, you'll have to pay super guarantee for your employees. So you can do it through the accounting software. With QuickBooks, you go reports, super payments. It is literally like a 10-second task. Like this is a demo file, so it's not registered, but basically you just select the quarter that you want to lodge. It tells you how much it is. make sure obviously do all the pay runs first. And then it'll tell you how much to pay, and then you can either direct debit straight from your bank account or do a BPay. So it can all be done through there, and for a lot of clients we actually do that for them. We just have a direct debit from their account so they don't have to worry about it. So you don't have to do any extra transfers. Very handy. So same thing in Xero, so you just go into superannuation. So you just select the quarter and then the payment options. One thing to be aware of here is that you need the premium subscription, which can be a little pricey, I think. I think the main reason is that Xero builds the payroll module it's all built in-house, I believe, whereas the payroll module for QuickBooks is actually by KeyPay, which is another very big payroll provider in Australia. They actually provide their solution with a lot of other niche accounting software providers. So if you might even see this layout looks familiar because there's a lot of other businesses, accounting software providers that use KeyPay as their thing. I think that's kind of clever. QuickBooks I think is just outsourced it to KeyPay because they specialize in it, whereas Xero has sort of built it from the ground up, which is maybe why they're charging extra. But as I said, I don't know. But yeah, so you might be thinking, Craig, how do I lodge my super? So unless you pay for the premium plan, you have to do it separately. And what I mean separately is you need to go to another clearinghouse. So you can go to a lot of the industry funds like Australian Super, CBUS, REST. Just go to the website. You can set up an employer account. You'll have to manually code across, or depending if you can upload it on their website, but you can upload their name, member number, address. So there's a lot of information to pull across manually, and then you've also got to put in how much you want to pay them, and then and then it's lodged. You make the payment through that clearinghouse. So personally, I think if you've got accounting software, you want to have this automation set up for super. It just makes things a million times easier. So yeah, if you liked the video, give us a like. If you've got any comments, put them down below. Or if you've thought of an idea for another video, maybe like Maya versus QuickBooks or something, yeah, happy to do it. Thanks for watching the video, and we'll see you at the next one.